Hello, everyone. This is Mrs. Vialba, and this week I'm bringing you your SEL lesson on brain neuroanatomy, or in other words, parts of the brain and their functions. Before we get started, go ahead and take your 3 deep breaths. Remember, this is to be mindful, focused, get us ready to learn. Here's an activity you can engage in if you'd like. If not, just kind of follow along and think about it. Write or draw what you think are the sections of the brain and their functions. So as we move through this lesson, that's where I want your focus. When we talk about the brain, we're talking about insight and self-awareness, regulation. We want you to be aware of your strengths and how you learn. And we want you to be able to tell the basic areas of the brain and their functions and how they help us each and every day. We'll focus on the prefrontal cortex. This is the front part covering the frontal lobe, and this brain region usually focuses on planning, complex cognitive behavior, personality, decision making. Then we'll also look at the amygdala. This is the almond-shaped mass that is inside the cerebral hemisphere, and that's where our emotions come from. And then there's the hippocampus. This is a complex brain structure, and its major role is learning and memory. We're going to watch this short video.
Now, you probably know the name Dan Siegel. He's one of the giants in the field of interpersonal neurobiology, and Dan came up with a lovely hand model of the human brain. So let's kind of go through the hand model of the brain. And this can be useful for you to understand, but at times it might be useful for you to actually share this with your client. The wrist, the forearm coming up to here, is like your spinal cord. And right here at the end of the wrist is like the base of your skull. And here at the bottom of your palm, this is like the reptile brain, the life support system of the brain. So, if the rest of your brain is wiped out through, say, for example, a stroke or a car accident, this life support part of your brain, the reptile brain, can still keep your body alive, can still keep all your organs functioning, and your breath and your heart and so forth. And this is where a lot of autonomic nervous system operates and stems from this reptile brain. Now, above the reptile brain is the mammalian brain, often called the limbic brain or the emotional brain. So reptiles, they've got the fight or flight response, or they've got the freeze, shut down, flop and drop response, but they don't really have anything that is even remotely close to the complex emotional states that we see in mammals. And the limbic brain has many different parts to it, but two in particular that we'll be looking at in this course are the amygdala and the hippocampus. Now, don't worry about memorizing those terms for now. We will revisit them later. But this kind of is the middle brain, the limbic brain, the mammalian brain, basically responsible for emotions. Now, on top of the limbic, mammalian, emotional brain, you've got the cerebral cortex, the thinking cap of the brain. The cerebral cortex is much thicker in mammals, but especially so in primates, and particularly so in human beings, more so than any other primate. And this cerebral cortex, the thinking part of the brain, responsible for consciousness and cognition. And right at the front of the cerebral cortex, you have the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that's right up here at the front of your forehead, above your eyes. And particularly important to us is the medial prefrontal cortex, this bit in the middle, right at the front, this bit up here. This plays a very important role in mindfulness and awareness. So let's just go through it again. You've got your spinal cord, you've got your reptile brain. Underneath your cerebral cortex, you've got your mammalian brain with the amygdala and hippocampus responsible for emotions. And then you've got your cerebral cortex, your thinking cap of the brain on top, and the medial prefrontal cortex right here in the center of the front. Right there.
Okay, so again, you can write this down on a piece of paper or just keep it in thought. So true or false? Humans use only 10% of their brain. The left and right brain, people differ. You must speak one language before learning another. The brains of males and females differ in ways that dictate learning abilities. And 5, true or false, each person has one particular learning style. Let's see if you are right.
An enduring myth says we use only 10% of our brain, the other 90% standing idly by for spare capacity. Hucksters promise to unlock that hidden potential with methods based on neuroscience, but all they really unlock is your wallet. 2/3 of the public and nearly half of science teachers mistakenly believe the 10% myth. In the 1890s, William James, the father of American psychology, said, "Most of us do not meet our mental potential." James meant this as a challenge, not an indictment of scant brain usage, but the misunderstanding stuck. Also, scientists couldn't figure out for a long time the purpose of our massive frontal lobes, or broad areas of the parietal lobe. Damage didn't cause motor or sensory deficits, so authorities concluded they didn't do anything. For decades, these parts were called silent areas, their function elusive. We've since learned that they underscore executive and integrative ability, without which we would hardly be human. They're crucial to abstract reasoning, planning, weighing decisions, and flexibly adapting to circumstances. The idea that 9/10 of your brain sits idly by in your skull looks silly when we calculate how the brain uses energy. Rodent and canine brains consume 5% of total body energy. Monkey brains use 10%. An adult human brain, which accounts for only 2% of the body's mass, consumes 20% of daily glucose burned. In children, that figure is 50%, and in infants, 60%. This is far more than expected for their relative brain sizes, which scale in proportion to body size. Human ones weigh 1.5 kilograms, elephant brains 5 kilograms, and whale brains 9 kilograms. Yet on a per-weight basis, humans pack in more neurons than any other species. This dense packing is what makes us so smart. There is a trade-off between body size and the number of neurons a primate, including us, can sustain. A 25-kilogram ape has to eat 8 hours a day to uphold a brain with 53 billion neurons. The invention of cooking 1.5 million years ago gave us a huge advantage. Cooked food is rendered soft and pre-digested outside of the body. Our guts more easily absorb its energy. Cooking frees up time and provides more energy than if we ate foodstuffs raw. And so we can sustain brains with 86 billion densely packed neurons, 40% more than the ape. Here's how it works.
So, the answer to that first one, false. Humans use only 10% of their brain, not true. The second one, false also. The left and right brain, people differ. This is not true, and there's nothing that supports that other than the fact that we use both parts and both sides of our brain. 3, also false. Young children who learn 2 languages, even at the same time, gain better generalized knowledge of language and structure as a whole. 4, also false. There is no research that shows that male and female brains differ. And number 5, also false. As we check out today, which of the 5 brain myths have you heard about before? And how can you apply what you've learned about your brain to tasks you work on for school? Thank you for listening and have a great rest of your week.